Hey, sexy people, if I had $1 for every time someone assumed that being ethically non-monogamous means I'm just running around here uncareful, untested, and reckless, I would not need this channel. I could retire. So today, I'm not going to explain myself to you. I'm going to hand you the receipts. Real peer-reviewed research on who's actually more careful with their sexual health. Monogamous people or non-monogamous people. And I think you already know where this is going, because if you've been in this community for any length of time, you've known the whole truth this whole time. The data just finally caught up. So, one thing before we go further, because I want to be exact with you. The research I'm walking you through uses the term consensual non-monogamy, or CNM, not ethical non-monogamy. That's not word swapping. Consensual just means everyone agreed to the arrangement. Ethical means it's actually done with care, honesty, and respect. You could have one without the other. Plenty of people are technically consensually non-monogamous while doing it badly. So keep that in mind. These studies measured people who checked the box on a survey, not people vetted as doing this well. My bet, as a coach, the safer behaviors these studies found are more common among people who are doing this ethically. But that's just my read, not the study's claim. I'm not going to blur that line for you, even though it would make my point sound cleaner. But before we get into this, hi, I'm Taylor K. Sparks, your ethical non-monogamy coach, sex goddess, with 17 years living a non-monogamous lifestyle and over a decade coaching people through it. And one of the most exhausting parts of this work was never the relationships. It's the assumptions that strangers make about them. The biggest one, that ENM, is a free-for-all. That more partners automatically means more risk. That people who aren't monogamous can't possibly be careful. Let's find out if that's actually the truth. So here's the assumption stated plainly. More partners, more risk. That's basic math, right? Except it's not math, it's behavior. And when researchers stopped guessing and actually studied real people, they found something the stereotype doesn't account for at all. Study 1, published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine in 2015, researcher Justin Lee Miller compared over 500 people, some monogamous, some consensually non-monogamous, and looked at their actual sexual health practices. And here's what he found. Yes, CNM people had more partners. They also tested for STIs more often and used condoms more consistently than the monogamous people in the study. Let's read that again. More partners, more precautions. And because of that, their actual STI rates didn't come out higher than what you see in imperfect monogamy, which is a nice way of saying people who are monogamous, but they're cheating. That's crack number 1 in the myth. Now, here's where it gets good. And if you've ever been side-eyed for being open about your non-monogamy, this part's for you. 2015, preventative medicine researcher Terry Conley's team asked a bold question. Does monogamy actually work as an STI prevention strategy in the real world? Not in theory, in practice. And what they found, infidelity in self-identified monogamous relationships happens at a rate ranging from 20 to 57%, depending on the study. Read that again, up to 57%. And here's the part that should make you sit up. People who cheated on their monogamous partners felt more protected from STIs while using less protection than people who were openly non-monogamous. Say it with me now. The people quietly stepping outside of their relationship, no disclosure, no testing agreement, no safety conversation, felt safer than the people having those conversations out loud. A related study from Conley's team 2013 found the same pattern. Unfaithful people were less likely to practice safer sex than people who were openly, consensually non-monogamous. So who's actually the risky one here? It wasn't the people practicing consensual non-monogamy. It's the people secretly cheating while telling themselves that they were safe because they were technically monogamous. And this isn't a couple of, old outlier studies, because in 2024, researchers published a massive review in the Journal of Family Theory and Review. 209 studies on polyamory and consensual non-monogamy pulled together in one place. The conclusion echoed everything before it. CNM people engage in equally safe or safer sex practices than monogamous people and report STI rates at or below the national average. Meanwhile, that same review confirmed something we already knew from living it. The public perception just hasn't caught up. People still assume that CNM folks are more promiscuous, higher risk. The stigma's alive and well. The data just doesn't back it up. It never did. So why the pattern? The studies don't answer that. And, this is me putting on my coaching hat. My take, non-monogamy done ethically requires communication. You have to talk about your sexual health with your partners, because even in a don't ask, don't tell dynamic, there still is a foundation of boundaries and radical honesty. Don't ask, don't tell does not mean that you don't discuss the things that can impact your partner and your relationship, like your sexual health. So agreements are still made even within that particular dynamic. The structure demands honesty. So compare that to someone who considers themselves monogamous with zero intention of ever having that conversation, because as far as they're concerned, there's nothing to disclose. If they step outside of the relationship, there's often no system in place, no testing agreement, no protection agreement, nothing, because the relationship was never built to account for that possibility. Ethical non-monogamy builds that safety net in from the start. That's not an accident. That's the entire premise of doing it ethically. Now, I need to be really, really clear about something, because I don't want this video misused. This research is not a permission slip to be careless just because you're ethically non-monogamous and therefore automatically safe. That is not what any of this says. What it says is the label on your relationship doesn't determine your risk. Your habits do. So here's what actually matters. No matter what you call your relationship, monogamous, non-monogamous, Betty Boop and the Three Squirrels, ask your partners or your potential partners when they were last tested. Be ready to answer that same question yourself, honestly, every single time. Agree on what looks like protection for you and with each partner, not once, in general, every time. Test regularly, make it routine, not a fire drill, and don't assume anything about someone's habits based on how they identify. Ethically non-monogamous doesn't automatically mean careful. Monogamous doesn't automatically mean safe. Ask directly. Ask every time. That's the actual work. The research defends our community from an unfair stereotype. It doesn't replace you doing your own due diligence with your own partners. If you want support actually having these kind of conversations, how to ask, how to build agreements, how to navigate the parts of this that feel awkward or even vulnerable for you, that's exactly what I built with the E&M Companion Coaching app. It's available anytime you need to talk like something through at advisor.organicloving.com, and the link, of course, is in my bio. Ethical non-monogamy was never the risk factor that people assume it is. Secrecy is. Silence is. Assuming instead of asking is. The label was never the risk. The silence is. If this helped, send it to someone who needs to hear it, especially someone who's been made to feel ashamed about being honest about how they love or how they navigate their sexuality. Thanks for watching. And if you would like to have a private conversation with me, my link's in my bio. And until next time, your love, your rules, and your freedom. Bye-bye.